right. Morning, good afternoon, and good evening, wherever you may be. Thank you for joining us. Another episode of Catching Up with Jacob. And you just heard from Jacob, and he did a whole hot take, albeit a long one this time, about what's going on in the world. And we want to welcome you. And we're Catching Up with Jacob. He did a video earlier, but we're here live. And he's not live with us, but David Lister is live with us. David, how are you this morning?
All right. Really good.
Praise the Lord. God bless you, brother. And Jay, not too far from me. How are you, Jay?
I'm doing well. Good to be here.
Hey, good to be here. You know, it was sunny Southern California last week. It's a little bit overcast today, but that's part of December weather. You get them both. You get the sunny ones and you get the overcast one. And of course, you usually have Davey from Australia with us on Saturday morning for him, but he is ill today. So please keep him in prayer. And he's got a little bit of the summer cold flu season that's going on there. And so he's not feeling well. Please keep him in prayer. He called me last night telling me that he couldn't be here. He wishes he could be here and sends his hellos and greetings. So that is really, really good. So keep Davey in your prayers as well. David Lister, since we don't have Jacob today, we wanted to get some of the announcements. Do you have any for today for those who are watching?
Well, Mark, who is our Indian missionary, just sent a report, which we'll be putting in the next quarterly, about new church plant, about all the success that he's been having on the last couple missions. They're working with lots and lots of pastors, and he's really knocking down the hyper charismatic nonsense that's gone on over there. And so so it's a good report. Look forward in the next one. Please pray as we've planted our second church now. So they're doing, he's going to be starting also monthly mission training with local pastors that are solid, and our guy that helps run the ministry and there. He's not going to be traveling every month, but I think maybe they might do some Zoom and things like this at the meetings.
Praise the Lord. Well, continue to pray for India and Mark. And I met his wife and his son in England when I was there. So keep him in prayer. I actually watched a little video of what he prepared and what's going on in India. So please keep that work in prayer. It's a great work, and it continues on with the orphanage, with the churches, and training pastors, which is a big, important part there. And so please keep him in prayer. Jacob is in Singapore this weekend, and he'll be preaching at a church in Singapore, and then he's coming to California in is it late January or early January, David?
Yeah, I've got the date. I hadn't bought his tickets yet, but
okay. Yeah, but you'll be with us on the West Coast, and he'll be coming out to Southern California to be with us as well. We'll get a date for that. And I know Tim Leach is coming end of December to Community Church of Divorce. So we'll be glad to have him there. So Tim Leach, and then later on Jacob Prash. So if you're in the Southern California area, come and visit us as well. And we want to welcome those who are watching us live in different platforms, from YouTube to Facebook Live, and of course Vimeo, Telegram. And of course, our great friends at Rumble and X, that they let us broadcast, and even going backstage with some of the hotter questions and topics that we're not allowed to speak on the mainstream platforms because of censorship. So we appreciate them. And RTN, MorialTV.org, and coming soon, Morial.tv, a brand new, a revamped website. Brand new, as it were, because we haven't touched it in a while, and revamped, and it's going to be great with lots of videos and lots of live streams. So really good stuff. Keep us in prayer for that coming up in this whole new year. And podcasts. Jay, I know we didn't talk about the podcast in our preview, but we reached a milestone in podcast, and we're doing really well in podcast. Can you remind everyone how they can participate in the podcast? Because people always ask me, I see you on YouTube, but how can I get the podcast on my phone?
Absolutely. You can go to Apple Podcasts if you're on Android. Obviously, you can go to any place where podcasts are carried. I believe Amazon has a platform that we are on, as well as anywhere podcasts can be found. Just
Spotify.
Download it.
Yeah, Spotify, I think.
Thank you. I was thinking Spotify, and just download and listen to them anytime. We did reach a milestone of 500,000 downloads, We cannot wait to cross that million. And
Let's do
you
it.
have an opportunity, since we upload constantly, that you can pull down more files. So please, if you want something, in case the internet's gone or you have no longer able to reach us and watch us, you can have the teachings still. You can have the great teachings from Memorial Chapel, all there, all ready to continue to watch, continue to receive.
And I meant to ask you about Memorial Chapel, our second channel. So that's going to be some of the teachings are going to be on Memorial Chapel, right, Jay? And then the prophecy, current events related stuff will be here still on Memorial TV. Is that how it's going to work?
Yes, we are posting all the old teachings of Jacob and some of yours. They are currently, we're up to somewhere like 300 videos, I believe, on Memorial Chapel, which is quite a bit of a milestone considering it was just launched a few months ago. So
Yeah.
we
I think
are.
we have 800 to go, right?
No, we have a lot. We have a lot to go.
Oh, aren't
so
we
if you
putting
want-
all of Marcos up there too?
We will be putting all of Marco's up
Slowly
there
but
too.
Oh,
sure.
sorry, 1,000 more to go.
Yeah. So it's
More than 1,000, I think.
I think
Gonna get
it
y'all a
makes it
lot of
harder.
teaching out there, and that's
Yeah.
really
So
good.
the way the internet's going and the way censorship's going, we want to put a lot of stuff out there so people can grab a hold of it, save it, put it on their flash drives, and download it into their phones or in their
Yeah.
computer. Because at some point, we believe that at some point it'll be harder to get these things. At least now it's getting harder, but eventually it'll become very hard to get them. So grab a hold of that. I think somebody mentioned about the flash drives last week. I think Davey's taking. So if you want to get a hold of the flash drives from our ministry, at CCOD. Please grab a hold of Davey. I don't even know. Did he give his
Mia
personal?
has Moriel's whole
Yeah.
enchilada with over 500 sermons by Jacob. So
Yeah,
get them and keep
Moriel.org.
them off the internet.
Yeah, Moriel.org for that. And you can get a hold of Davey. I don't know if he gave his personal email. I don't know which email to give, but if you just contact Moriel and then they get a hold of Davey and he can send you the one from Community Church of Divorce, or you can get a hold of us. That's divorcetruth@gmail.com, and we'll get that for you as well. So lots of stuff, good stuff. But we have a full episode of great topics. And with all that said, David, let's get started. Let's catch up on what's going on. And David, who's in charge of protecting America? I mean, you got, if you've seen the latest of Biden walking into the Amazon, and you see the latest of Kamala Harris looking like she just stepped out of rehab, actually before you went to rehab, it just seems so odd that for many years, you knew who was in charge. Now it's pretty clear that although you don't know who's in charge, it seems like the deep state's there. But now big alerts are coming out of the East Coast. Now it's happening in different parts of the United States, but very sophisticated giant drones flying all over the East Coast, New Jersey, New York, on the West Coast, Oregon, Minnesota, Langley Air Force Base, even last year. And it's been a trend that they've even been approached by U.S. aircrafts. But suddenly these drones, or whatever they are, as people don't know what they are yet, but they look like drones, disappear. They go dark and they disappear. And it's causing a lot of people to be concerned. Thousands of videos online. It's one of the hottest trending news because people keep posting video after video from different areas, are buzzing around rooftops, military bases. And yet, David, no one knows who they are. So it adds to the mystery, right? And people want to look into it. But give us your thoughts. You and I watched a few videos from the news and what people are saying, even the White House. What's your take on what's going on?
Well, the Department of Defense says we have nothing to worry about. We're safe. It's all good. So don't worry.
Now, I'm really
that's
worried.
the same
now.
people
Yeah.
that lied to us about everything else. But anyway,
I'm really worried. Yeah.
Yeah. This could be a whole mixture of everything. It could be our Department of Defense actually using new weapons and training them in secret, which is very possible. Because drones are the future of warfare. We're seeing this already in Ukraine. So, and flying things, mysterious type aircraft. in various places, such out in the desert area 51. That's long time have been secret. I had a cousin that worked out in White Plains, New Mexico. To his death, he never talked about it. He said it was secret. I said it's all been declassified by now, but he said no, secret. So, but they always fly secret stuff. So this could very well be part of training. They don't want to talk about it. These larger drones, just go on to some defense contracting things and the shows that they have. You can see all sorts of samples of military drones and everything that are quite incredible, quite large, carrying all sorts of missiles, Hellfires, Phoenix, and I think as well as I forgot the name of it. It's a heat-seeking missile. They have those on there too. So there's that part. But then there's also enthusiasts. They love flying them and stuff like this around the U.S. But it's just incredible that everybody's really bothered by this. And I don't understand why. If it is just people or even actors that are against our country, why the government hasn't acted to bring it down, like such as the balloon that flew over these places. We've had an invasion by military-age men. They could be putting these drones up and trying to gather information with cameras, with all sorts of things. So. But they say we have no ability to turn these things around or stop them. But we've seen that they do have some things for manned drones where you have a radio frequency. You shoot up 1,000 signals, it confuses, and then it brings itself down. So they can do that. But many of these seem to be AI run drones. They don't have a radio frequency signal.
Right.
They just have the programming, and then as an AI, if it senses danger or senses it needs to do something else, it has the ability to correct itself and to turn itself off and go dark, as it were. So there's all sorts of the Defense Department doesn't like their information out there, so just lie. Just that's what you do. The truth is so precious, you must guard it by a bodyguard of lies. And when the government says it doesn't know something, that's a problem. We had a friend. He had a drone. He flew it in the national park, and he got in trouble. And they knew who he was, and they showed up his door. So don't tell me you can't, know
exactly
who these people are.
Yeah. And let me go to Jay real quick. Jay, where's the urgency, and why are we not being told anything? I mean, we got 21 mayors, the governor of New Jersey, the governor of Virginia, different governors going like, we don't even know. The White House, of course, I believe they're lying, but nobody really knows. And it's that's a problem in and of itself, because it's like, wait a minute, they're telling us we're safe, but how do you know? But they just know. But we don't know what they are, or at least it's not being revealed what they are. That's a big problem, isn't it? Considering wars and rumors of wars in which we live in.
That's why I really don't trust what they say, that we don't need to worry. Obviously, we don't need to worry because they know something. They just have classified it, as they always do. To David's point, the most likely scenario, obviously, is it's their own ordinance that they're testing, and they don't want to reveal to the public and to the world that they have this ordinance. Therefore, they're going to fly it, first of all, at night. That's what they did with the SR-22. That's what they did with the stealth bomber. It all flew at night so that you weren't able to actually identify the object because it was a top secret project. The drones. Let me ask you this,
Jay. Yeah. Let me ask you this, because I don't want to be, just kind of push the issue, but here's one. The government has always been doing this, as you guys have pointed out, but why now make it so blatant because it is blatant. It's not like they're hiding it anymore. It is a blatant thing. There's thousands and thousands of videos. Now we don't ultimately know what they are because obviously some of these footage is, quite from a long distance. Even if you fly a drone nearby them, all of a sudden the drone becomes obsolete, the one that people are flying. So, but nonetheless, why be so blatant and open about it, unlike the past?
Hmm.
Well,
Go
I
ahead,
could ask
David.
real quick.
You know what I'm saying?
Confusion.
Yeah, you know what I'm saying? Like,
Confusion hides the truth. Deception. So all warfare is waged by deception. They could be using these things Defense Department could be using these to get ready for coming wars and training of men and things like that. Even around here where I live, over near Fort Campbell, they've been running military training stuff real heavy lately, buzzing right over the top of my house with helicopters. So
yeah, I go back
I
to it real
will.
quick. Go ahead, Jay.
I will go a step further. This could be a form of communication with adversarial regimes.
yeah,
Also, it's like by flying these at this time, they're
Don't mess
saying
with us.
we've got things that you don't know about, or
Right.
are you aware that we have these things?
Yeah.
yes.
They asked Mike Johnson this question, David Lister. They asked Mike Johnson what this could be. What's the level of concern? Because, okay, one thing is you don't know, but what's the level of concern? Do you think the government is telling us the truth? This is to Mike Johnson. And can members of Congress answer these questions? This is Johnson's response. He says, we're working on that. We need
Yeah.
straight answers, of course, but we're concerned about all the drones and technologies that we might mean for national security and the safety of American citizens. I'm looking forward to the outcome. And if we don't get the necessary answers, we'll dig deeper to the classified level. This is why people hate Congress. This is why people hate Congress when somebody who calls himself a Christian. They went further. The journalist says, any thoughts of this being a dark program, meaning a secret program? This is Johnson. I hope not. I don't believe so, but there's a lot of investigation that needs to go on. So the FBI is deeply involved. Congress, tight lip, don't want to say anything. They released a statement, the FBI, and basically it's nothing. John Kirby from the White House says it's nothing. Don't worry about it. So it leaves us with three theories. David Lister, actually four theories.
Yeah.
China, Russia, right?
Yeah.
Or Iran, mothership of Iran, which is bizarre. But anyway, some congressmen, by the way, just to, not to knock all of the congressmen or women down, have been outraged about this. Who says, we don't know what this is. We're not being told. This is not good and we need answers. Now, I don't know if they're going to get them. The president might not even know what they are. But it could be Iran mothership, they said. It could be, and get a hold of this, a UFO disclosure coming up. A UFO disclosure coming up. Now, we don't call them UFOs anymore, right? I think they call them, what do they call them? UAB or something like that now?
Something like that.
Identify something.
Aerial vehicle or something.
Vehicle. Yeah, something like that. Project Bluebeam was a big deal. And people look at that and they want the Pentagon to, come out and reveal this high technology project, which I think in some ways we are dealing with the high technology program and projects. Or the last one, David, it's an asset. It's a U.S. program asset, which previously had been undisclosed to the world. Now it's for the world to see. And perhaps what you're saying is this is what Jay said was it's a military thing to show the world we're ready. What do they know? Are we being threatened, David? Are we being threatened that these things have coming out now?
Well, if it's the Department of Defense, what'll happen is they'll call a meeting with Congress, just the top guys in Congress. They'll go into a closed room. They'll all leave their phones outside in a locker and everything and make sure they're scanned. They'll go in there and they'll tell them what's going on and then say you can't say anything. Other than everything's okay.
And that's why people hate Congress.
That's right.
Exactly.
But then all warfare, secrecy, you have to have secrecy to fight an enemy. They can't know everything that you have, and you don't want them to. And so it could easily be this, but, we won't know. But for Christians, no weapon formed against us is going to prosper. But we live in strange times, and secrecy drives the world nuts. Everybody wants to know
Okay.
things. Yeah.
You know,
All right. Let's go ahead, Dave. Go ahead, Jay.
I just wanted to bring this really quick. You know, also in warfare, there is this tendency in World War II. Patton had an inflatable army in
Yeah.
northern England to make sure that everybody thought that he was coming to the Pas de Calais.
That's right.
So you
It
never
worked
know.
too.
You never know with the government, with the military, if they're just doing things with maybe like recreational drones just to make it look like they have some kind of new sophisticated weapon
Yeah.
Well, they used to
For what?
fly drones out of the CIA in Langley
all the
that were
time.
flying over Iraq and everything, firing missiles and stuff. So that's been going. They were hiring like video enthusiasts to be, fire the weapons because they were better at it. But now they've trained up enough soldiers to sit in
And with
chairs.
artificial intelligence, we don't really need
now
it.
it's
Nope.
Yeah. With so many, this is a UAP, unidentified aerial phenomenon. That was a phenomenon, the last part. With so many, being deployed, not just on the East Coast. Don't forget the West Coast. Here, not too far from my house, Edwards Air Force Base. They were flying drones since last year, heavily out of Victorville. So tensions are rising. David Lister, is it time for war? And just Americans are so worried about what's going on in the sky, we forget the big forest. Is it time for war? And are they just, declaring like, hey, there's something amidst here? And Trump's inauguration, some people say couldn't come any quicker, but we're still some 30 some days away. Are we getting into this war? And perhaps the only time it will know is it's after the facts.
Well, certainly NATO seems to want war. One of the heads of NATO said we have to think that we are to be in a war to be able to have peace. Now, that's not the way I would think, but then.
Yeah, that's Mark Rutte for you there.
So it's, but people everywhere are wanting war, but it looks like some people, such as Putin, would like to negotiate. I think Trump is trying to bring the world back to some sanity, and to stop these things because he doesn't want a war with Ukraine. But, the reason war is in Ukraine and Russia is so important is because they supply 50% of the world's fertilizer, which has driven up the price of our food and our crops. So it's important in that respect. Plus, Ukraine has a lot of grain.
Feeds the world. Feeds the world.
And so it's important there. And if you remember some weeks back, we talked about the future currency could well be food.
Yeah.
If I may add to that, real quickly, we talk a lot about how Putin wants to revive the Soviet Union.
Yes.
But equally as much as he does, NATO wants to reinforce the idea of a Cold War with the Soviet Russia. They have more incentive to villainize Russia than Russia has to reconquest all of its runaway provinces. Because obviously it's about money, it's about weaponry, it's about the free flow of money and support to the Western allies.
Yeah, I've always said NATO was the bigger threat. NATO was a bigger threat, that coalition of nations. And obviously some people would disagree, but I think NATO is the bigger threat here because they've been pushing for war. It continues to war, even when it's time for peace. Now, David, it is time for war. The fall of Damascus. Let's talk about the fall of Damascus. Syria has fallen. And talk about a war. We'll talk about the winners and losers in a bit, but what's next in the Middle East? Damascus has fallen. Assad is gone. He's in Russia now. With all his faults, they have been, it was the place where Islamists didn't ethnically cleanse everybody, like in Iraq, like in Afghanistan. But now you have this vacuum that's setting in there. And before the war, this is back in 2008, 2009, there was at least 10% of the Syrian population were Christians, largely described as Christians, right? Since 2000, 2008, it's fallen below 3%. Obviously, many of them fled, many of them have been killed, obviously, with ISIS and all that stuff. But chaos is about to ensue in Syria because I can tell you who they say is in charge, but boy, they call them rebel groups. They're terrorists. They're bottom line terrorists. We'll get to that in a moment. But David, what is ensued for Christians in Syria now that Assad is not there? He's an Alawite, minority Shiite, at least control the terrorists that were there. Not a good guy himself, dictators, but we've seen dictators being deposed, and then a vacuum fill. There's a vacuum that happens, and something has to fill it in. Go ahead.
The first thing that I wrote is that I hope, when I heard Syria fell, first thing I wrote was, I hope that there will be tolerance for all, but I am afraid that there will be persecutions of Christians quickly followed by Sharia law, and the persecution of Christians has already started. Murder, beatings, etc. So the 3% will soon be 0%, and which will bring more carnage to Syria, maybe even Damascus. Isaiah 17 thing, maybe we'll talk about, but it's you've got American military came in and wiped out a whole bunch of ISIS camps, which this leader is ex-ISIS, other radical groups. He's as terrorist a group as there is. And so he's leading this, and so he might try to say, hey, I'm all for peace, to try to get some money flowing. But he's lost all of the major weapons that Bashir has. Israel has destroyed the military, destroyed the Air Force, destroyed every manufacturing plant. I know there were chemical plants that our government was very worried about too. And so these are quickly been destroyed, but they haven't destroyed the army. And Israel has wisely taken back the Mount Hermon viewpoints for looking into Syria they were forced to give back by Kissinger in 1974. So they'll hold on to that because they believe that was an agreement they had with Bashir. So that will give them a strategic ability to stop an invasion from Syria. But they've got groups like Druzes. They want to join Israel.
They want to get out of there. They want to get out of there.
Yeah, they want to actually like to be part. And Druzes fight in Israel that are from Israel, do fight for Israel. So, but this whole place is a mess. Ever since the British left it, you've got Kurds and Shiites, Sunnis, all pushed together in Iraq. And you got Turkey over there now wanting to expand his empire and having a fight against the Kurds, which hold the northern area of Iraq where all the oil is. And, so it's quite the mess everywhere. So war everywhere.
Does this remind you, Jay, of 2015, 2016? Gaddafi's killed. Earlier than that, Saddam Hussein was killed. Gaddafi, of course, was killed at the orders of Obama and Hillary Clinton, unleashed terror in Libya. Then you got Saddam Hussein, as evil as he was. He kept the Shiites and the Sunnis, at least the terrorist groups, in check. And then thousands of Christians are basically wiped out as soon as Saddam Hussein is deposed. ISIS, ISIL, all these names that they gave him, Obama founded them. Afghanistan, the same way. So the U.S. has been responsible for a lot of this vacuum effect. Will we see that again in Syria?
Almost as if it was a continuation of a long-term plan by the Defense Department and the CIA. That's an interesting angle there.
Yes.
Right now Israel is getting a lot of flack for destroying the Syrian Air Force. And the Syrian Air Force, let's be clear. For Syria to have an Air Force with modern-day jet planes means you're allowing jihadists who supposedly, again, flew planes into buildings to kill people, now have a modern day Air Force. I'm going to go back again. I like the World War II. Not many people know about the Mers El Kabir attack by the British.
Hmm.
It's basically the Pearl Harbor of the European setting. The French fleet, after France had decided to surrender to the Nazis, was stationed at Mers El Kabir in Algeria, and the British sent a flotilla and destroyed the world's third biggest navy in one day at
Wow.
Mers El Kabir. So, what's the difference between what the British did to win a war against an adversary to Israel protecting themselves preemptively against what is going to be a terrorist state? I don't care what media says, that he's a nice progressive guy, that he likes gender No, he works for Al Qaeda, he worked for ISIS. This is a very bad man, and the people who are in his regime are very bad people. Syria is now going from worse to even worse.
Yeah, absolutely. So who's Jay? We'll start with we'll stay with you. Who will control Syria, or whatever they're going to call it now at the end? Obviously, this is Damascus, and we'll talk about the prophecy of Isaiah. But here's Yolani, Abu Muhammad Yolani, as you mentioned. They're trying to paint him as this moderate Sharia light, individual. They trimmed up his beard. They put a Zelensky looking suit on him. Now he's the modern day Zelensky in the Middle East, and I would imagine they're going to support him and fund him. But the media is painting him as this moderate guy. But as you mentioned, he worked with ISIS. He was mentored by Abu Bakr al-Baghdadi, if you guys remember that, and he was working for Al Qaeda. And now the rebels in Syria are claiming that after this is Jerusalem. After this it's what they call Palestine. Syrian men wanting to go back and fight for the new Syrian rebel army in Germany. All these Syrians in Europe going, we're taking the land like Muhammad did, chanting Muhammad's chants when they took over Mecca. So it's clear what the Muslim world thinks. Whether it's in Europe, whether it's in Syria, it's time to march upon the land and start taking over.
Yeah.
They're opening up another front against Israel. And when I say they, what I mean is the U.S.
Yeah.
And Turkey.
Yeah. So, David, we'll go with you. Will it be Turkey, the long-awaited caliphate that they've been wanting since the Ottoman Empire, with Erdogan as the head?
He's long dreamed that, hasn't he? That he
Yeah.
is the new caliph of the revised Ottoman Empire. Well, I don't know if he'll ever make it there, but I do remember on the Russians, when they pulled out a bunch of equipment too, but they left naval vessels that had missiles on them, which could easily attack Israel and everything. So they've done quite the job. So
Yeah, no, absolutely. And Turkey, if they do get this, will
yeah,
have a corridor right into Israel if they ever decide to invade it.
but they've got
Back
the
to you,
Kurds. They got their Kurds on there where they have, which they've
on the
been
north,
fighting.
east.
And
Yeah,
so
east.
they would have to finish that. But there's also Kurds now down here in Syria. And
Oh,
so
yeah,
there
yeah,
may be some
for sure.
sort of alliance there. And Kurds are good fighters. They're pro-West, but they were forced stupidly by the Bush administration into uh, a bad position. They should have been given their land. So
David, will it be a U.S. UN coalition that would control Syria? We know how that worked in every other state that they tried to do that.
oh, I'm sure they're going to start arguing about it. That's usually what they do. They'll debate it and everything. And in the meantime, this guy's going to consolidate power, and then most likely he'll put out, we have to rebuild our country. We need supplies. We need food, so he can be seen as a hero. But at the same time, he'll be killing Christians. and Jews if he finds them, if there is any left there in Syria. I
Yeah,
know
there's a
there's an
small community.
old mosque
Yeah.
there, I believe.
Yeah, there's still an old community, Jewish
Yeah.
community still in Syria. Biden here in America, Starmer in the UK, pledged millions of dollars to help rebuild Syria. Of
Yep.
course, right? We got Zelensky in the Middle East now.
They better hurry up,
Yeah.
or Starmer
37
going to be
days.
holding the bag.
Yeah.
Oh man, yeah. What about Russia and Iran, Jay? It seem to be big losers in this. Obviously,
Yes.
not want to make not want to make the comparison. The persecution of Christians. Those are probably the biggest loss there. Christians in the small communities. But what about Russia and Iran and the influence they had in Syria for a long time? They just packed up and left.
Yep.
To be honest, I'd say let's wait and see, because, like you said, they had great influence. In fact, I believe, don't they have a naval base in Syria? The Russians?
They lost
Yeah,
it
they
now,
didn't
though.
destroy it. They didn't destroy it, though. They did not destroy it.
That they
Yeah.
might have plans to come back.
That's
Maybe.
always the door's always open. The door's
I
always
mean,
open.
let's face it. ISIS and the Al Qaeda, they are always willing to be bought. So
Mm.
maybe it's one of those things. What kind of deal can you give me?
The price is always open. Negotiation is always open. I did want to ask you, David, going back to you, the prophecy of Isaiah 17, and this is something that we've talked about here in the past, maybe not to that extent. But this is Damascus will stop from being a nation, a city, I should say. And literally, the word that Isaiah uses, as inspired by the Spirit, is the word that was used for Sodom and Gomorrah. It'll be wiped out. It'll be from existence. So we're
Place
getting
for jackals.
we're getting closer to that. Ultimately, I don't believe this has happened. Some people said it's partially happened and this and that, but ultimately, I believe it's going to take place. Obviously, in
Yeah,
scriptures,
that's true.
are we seeing the stage being set? Because as it is, half of it, maybe three quarters, in quite in bad shape. There's still people there. It's the oldest ancient populated city in the world. Obviously, we know about Paul. We know about the gospel being preached there. But it is changing, and the events are changing. Are we getting closer to that, you think?
Well, having a man like Bashir there that is a radical is setting himself up to be destroyed himself, because if he comes against Israel, Israel will hold nothing back. And that could be the end, definitely the end, but we do know that the invasion will come from the north to end Israel. And so it's looking like we're getting closer, but it would be easy to destroy Syria. They have no defenses, but if the invasion comes, it's Israel has to stop it, and now they can see it coming from a long ways off. But do we have a few more years now? That's the question.
Right, right, exactly.
So, but he's got to put things back together as a ruler. He has to try to stabilize the country, get people fed, and in the meantime, destroy whatever internal enemies he has there, consolidate his power. He needs more weapons, of course, if he's going to be any sort of a force against some of because like the Hezbollah is more friendly to Iran, and they're mortal and Shiites and Sunnis. So it's going to be quite interesting, the interplay. It says in scripture that the sword will never depart from Ishmael's hand, and his hand will be against everyone and everyone against him. Islam fights against, if it doesn't have a common enemy, it fights against itself. And Shiites and Sunnis have been fighting against each other since the Battle of Kabbalah.
Karbala. Yeah, yeah. Let me bring that up, because we did watch a video of a mom. It was a mother in Syria. She was from, obviously, has spent time in the UK. Went back to Syria to celebrate the fall of Assad, and she mentioned on the video This is Ummah. This is Ummah, she says. And people wonder, well, what is Ummah? Obviously, what you have to find out. It's very simple. Ummah is the Islamic idea of unity of Islam. All Muslims are one brother, one unity, one people is what it says in the Quran. And but it's very different in real life. Now, that's what the Quran says. Now, let me tell you what the scripture says. You mentioned that. It's from the book of Genesis 17. It talks about Ishmael's sword will be against his brother. And
Yep.
it will be a continual fight among them. Esau will always be in rebellion against itself. And so what you see here is the Quran is not true, and the Bible is absolutely right. And because you've seen it, David, in your time, you've probably seen it more than I have in regards to what King Hussein did in Jordan, what the Saudis and the Iraqis did with each other, what they did to the Kuwaitis, what they did to the Jordanians, what they did to the Palestinians by Jordan, even in Lebanon. So this has gone on and on and on. Now, obviously, I beg the question, right, David? Who deposed Assad?
Well, I think Jay was hinting at the CIA and
Well, no, I'm talking about it was Muslims.
oh, Muslims. Oh,
Muslims.
yeah. Sorry.
So that's not Ummah.
Yeah.
That's not this is Shiite, Sunni, Alawites, which is the where Bashar al-Assad was from. They were put in there by the British, right?
Yep.
Way long ago after World War One. They put these minority groups in there in power arbitrarily. Some of these lines in the Middle East didn't exist prior to World War One, and they put them in power to control the radical terrorism that these eventually people became radically terrorizing the Middle East. So he was put in place as a stopper, but now that's gone, and so there's no Ummah,
Yeah.
isn't there?
Same thing with Saddam Hussein. He was a dictator there, put in power to keep one boot on the neck of the Sunnis, one boot on the neck of the Shiites, and to maintain peace and pump oil. But the problem is and then our own CIA got Iran Shiites to fight against Iraq, causing millions of deaths. It's been like this. Iran ran children in the second and third and fourth grade through, dressed them in white and ran them through minefields to clear the way for their armies to invade Iraq. It's just insanity the way that it's such a religion that loves death. But you have all these Syrians that have come into Europe. I'm wondering if they're going to go back.
No, they say it's too tough in Syria. They say, no, we don't want to go back.
Well, I think I would say, hey, you've got a new victory. Bashar's gone. That was the reason you got to come. Go home.
About a million Syrians in Germany marching. Well, not all of them were marching, but about a million in there coming the last maybe since 2015. It's the latest numbers, and those are the ones that they account for. Now they got great numbers marching through Christmas towns, or I should say Christmas markets in Germany, and chanting this this is our land, this is Muhammad's land, this is what Muhammad chanted in Mecca. That is severe warning to the West. This is what's coming to Syria and Europe. Yeah. And that hatred of Israel has now been transported into Europe, which now you can see the anti-Semitism.
First the Saturday people, then the Sunday people, Mark.
Yeah, I wanted to switch gears real quick, David. This is, well, we're paying attention to Syria, and rightly so, Damascus and what's going on in the Middle East. And by the way, I do believe the geography of the Middle East is changing prophetically to what the scripture says is going to happen there in the future. But here is Israel, within the borders of Israel, within the land of Israel, you have, well, everybody's pointing to Syria and Damascus, and rightly so, an internal war that not a lot of people are talking about, and it's what's going on in what they call the West Bank, which is really basically Samaria and Judea.
And Samaria, yeah.
Let me explain, David, real quick, and then I'll turn it over to you. The threat of war, it's at hand. Here is the Palestinian Authority, who want power there. They have the power there, who are now fighting against all the Islamic terrorist groups within that area. Now, they're not fighting the Jews at this time. They're fighting themselves. This is the Al-Aqsa Brigade. This is Fatah. This is Islamic Jihad. This is smaller group and smaller groups that are fighting against the Palestinian Authority. It's unleashed. And some people say, well, they've always been fighting. Not like now. This is different. They have killed children. They have put car bombs. They have gone after police, the PA police, and multiple declarations by these terrorists that they want to depose the PA in power in the West Bank. Now, this is in Nablus, this is in Tubas, this is in Tulkarm, this is in Jenin. So this is something that's coming that within the borders of Israel. And I think something has to be done at some point because 70 terrorists of the brigade are lining up against police and they're killing them. So in Jenin, which is the biggest area there, and so some people believe we're on the verge of a collapse of the PA. David, your thoughts on what's going on in the West Bank?
Well, assassination is a great way to get rid of leaders and create confusion so that you can bring in other leaders. Okay, and the PA people, they're tired of their leaders. But now, like you said, you've got power pulled in 5 different ways. They have so many arms over there, and it's, Jenin is right near Jacob's Well. You also have in the West Bank over there in Judea and Samaria, which I've been over there, is you have where the Ark of the Covenant sat for a couple hundred years. So it's really Israel's land, but politically it was made a tool to hurt Israel. And so these groups, you have Hamas, which is Muslim Brotherhood, which you didn't mention about them fighting in Egypt and killing Assad and all that. So they've always fought against each other. And
the Muslim Brotherhood killing Mubarak.
Yeah, so they've always been against each other. So now you've got 5 of them wanting power because the world is so stupid. It gives them billions and billions of dollars. So every time they have a war, the world sends billions of dollars. They could have had a jewel of a place, but Hezbollah, who shows up to unite them? I don't know right now if there is a group that's one better than the other. They're killing themselves off. Well, Hamas is definitely weakened. Hezbollah is weakened. And also Iran doesn't have the ability to get weapons in there right now because of the turmoil and the loss of Syria. Russia is struggling to get things going because of their own problems in the Ukraine. So it's going to be quite interesting. We wonder if it'll be a good way to sue for peace and have a bunch of Muslim groups come together to form a coalition.
It's
a common enemy.
Absolutely. I'm going to go to Jay real quick. Jay, armed clashes, car bombings, war declarations, people being killed. This is in the West Bank. The PA showed up, gave an ultimatum to these terrorist groups: lay down your weapons, or else, to the refugee camp that they have there. What they call the refugee camp is basically Muslims putting themselves in refugee camps. And then they send a SWAT team. Now they got children killed. Now they got these armaments of being sent in there, raising up kids to become jihadists. Are we going to see this destabilization? And Israel at some point has to go in there because it's so close to the Jewish area there, and they have it zoned out A, B, C. So this is definitely in the Muslim zone, but multiple declarations of terrorism going on in there. So no Ummah, major war. Is Israel have to do something about this? Does Israel have to do something about this?
I keep saying this. I need to make myself a tinfoil hat because every time I say something like this, I want to put it on.
Where's mine? I gotta give.
To me, what it sounds like is if I were saying going down the conspiracy, it sounds like this destabilization is maybe Israel covertly is backing one of these groups to cause the violence, so that they might have to go in there and reclaim their land.
Mm-hmm.
I hate to say that.
Right. Well, it's been done before.
Correct.
It's been done before to destabilize it. Are we on the verge of a collapse, though, Jay, of the PA?
I think it's definitely getting to the border where it possibly could be.
Hmm.
It does seem to be appear to be that there is a destabilization, and they don't have control of anything right now.
Yeah. Yeah, that it's nobody really knows ultimately who's going to come out of this because they might just end up all killing each other. It kind of reminds me of the events in Judges or the events in Second Chronicles where Israel's setting out to war and God's going to protect them, and then all of a sudden the enemies turn on each other and then they wipe each other out, and Israel's like, we didn't even have to fight this war because they're their own enemies. So there's no ummah at all whatsoever.
There never has been. In fact,
No.
Genesis 16 says, if you go to the bottom, it says, and he will live in hostility towards all his brothers.
Yes.
Well, who are his brothers?
Yeah.
They're
Yeah.
every little branch of Islam, whether we're talking about Alawite, Sufi, Sunni,
Yeah.
Shiite.
Well, the
They
little ones.
they all hate each other.
That's right.
Well, what
David,
about another scenario,
go ahead.
Marco?
Go ahead.
You have all these groups, but then some force from the outside comes and let's get a peace, you
Mm,
know?
that's, you know what? I'm gonna hold out to that because I
Yeah.
want to come back to
I
Trump's.
just threw it out there. It's a curveball.
Yeah, it's a Trump magazine, the Time magazine for Trump, and we'll come back to that. But I did want to ask you this, David, before we finish up in the Middle East. Is people are saying now, watch out, this is a play for Israel to expand its borders, and now it's called Greater Israel. And there's some Christians, that buy into replacement theology and all that stuff that they say, well, there's nothing to do with scripture. It's just Israel is just becoming a terrorist state and conquering land. And this is part of the U.S. Trump's cabinet coming in there and letting them do whatever they want. And then they've been critical of other, like the new ambassador to Israel, like the new secretary of state. They're going to give Israel just an opportunity to expand its territory, take over Syria, take over Iraq, take over parts of Saudi Arabia, Jordan. And because what they're saying is that they're going to let Israel expand. It's called the Greater Israel. We're going to see it probably as soon as Trump takes office in January 20th. There's going to be this propaganda saying he's going to just let Israel have whatever they want, Greater Israel, Greater Israel. David, do you buy into this idea that this is the Greater Israel stuff? I mean, it sounds so out of the realm of what we see, but this is again part of the conspiratorial ideas of making Israel become the next boogeyman.
Yeah. Look, I don't think Israel wants to take on Egypt, Saudi Arabia, the remnants of whatever is up going on in Syria, Hezbollah. And if they were to try to expand into Saudi Arabia and Jordan, they've got a few weapons too. Israel would be crazy to take all that on and then throw Iraq in. They're not trying to expand. Whoever believes this, most likely they have, and I don't want to speak for every one of them, but this is an anti-Semitic dream to make, like you said, make them a boogeyman. This is
If you see the screen there, David, that you can see there. Well, this is what Greater Israel would look like.
Yeah, that's
in their
nonsense.
minds. Lebanon, Syria, most of Syria, what a big piece of Iraq, definitely Jordan, definitely part of Saudi Arabia, definitely the Negev, definitely going down into Egypt. This is what they call this is what they believe is the future for the Middle East, that this is what Trump is going to let them have. And this is Israel's dream to get rid of their enemies, not only the land, consolidate the land, but also expand into Muslim land, into Arab land.
Well, we know it's not going to happen this way because we've read the Bible and we understand that God does have some peace for different nations, including Egypt and including Libya. And if they were to attack Iraq and then all the oil that's there and stuff, the whole Muslim world would be on them. They're not aggressors like that. These are the people that gave away their own land, to please just here, take all these warehouses of food, hydroponic, and
Oh, in
take
Gaza,
it
yeah.
and feed your people and everything, and just leave us alone. Just leave us alone is what they want. They trade 300 soldiers for one dead body. 300, because they love life. And but they are like what was said of us by the Napoleon concerning America in its early days. We are lambs in peace, but we're lions in war. And that pretty much describes these guys. They want peace. They go all beyond anything that any country should have to endure for peace. But they get war and they wage war
Yeah,
when
I mean, even when they were negotiating with the PA, Omer and Barack, I mean,
yeah.
they gave way generous. They literally were giving away the whole store, as we say here in America.
98% of what Yasser Arafat asked for, he promised them. And Yasser Arafat has to be all of it and walked away.
Walked away and didn't even respond to even what they were trying to do. Even when John Kerry, who was completely anti-Zionist too, anti-Jew, that when he tried to intervene, didn't even answer him. The PA didn't even want to answer him because
who respects that man?
yeah,
Nobody. I know.
exactly. But yeah, now let me we hit about 55 minutes into our episode. Just want to welcome everyone that's been watching live. We thank you for watching and being here with us, and also those who watch later when the episode goes up on our YouTube and different platforms. We are on YouTube and Facebook, but we won't be on YouTube and Facebook for the backstage portion of the episode where the questions are asked. So you're going to have to jump to the other ones. We are on Telegram, we are on Vimeo, we are on Rumble, we are on RTN, we are on different platforms, including X, and we're planning doing some stuff on X so people can. I think it was you, David, that told people, "Hey, download X and then see if you can find us on X and see what we post there because we do post there in videos
and
increasingly."
We got a lot of people that like us and are on. If anybody wants to, I'm David Blue 55.
There's David
Don't
Lister.
tell them it's me and don't post a picture of me. Bork doesn't even know who I am.
Yeah, and so if you want to go to those and including Vimeo, but if you want to ask questions, go to Rumble and Jay will take the questions, and also Jonah is there as well moderating. We thank him for so much for all the work that he does, and we appreciate him. And but we won't be on YouTube and Facebook, so that's my thing. So jump over to the site if you want to ask questions, including Rumble and X, but Rumble takes the questions. So, and
will the preview of the Jacob's Hot Take appear on that?
It's on the live stream version. Yeah,
it's already played, but we'll also repost it as well once we repost this broadcast.
Yes, yeah.
He did a great take, so make sure you tune in to all of us.
So let's reset the table here, David, real quick. And I do want to bring about this idea, and I want to play, not to play a video, but I do want to play and show you this picture. And this is Trump, Time Magazine, Person of the Year. This article just came out, and this is an article that deals with mainly what is happening in the world. World War III is what they call it, and what Trump is willing to do. And his article is all about really what he is wanting to do, which is peace. It's really an interesting article, which is about peace. Now, this is, of course, this is going to infuriate people that hate Trump, and there's lots of even Christians, even people that that we're aware of that hate him without a cause, right? Others just hate him because they just don't trust him. Others are absolutely in love with them. Absolutely, he said that he's the best president ever had, and he's great and all that stuff. And there's quite a bit of opinion. It's polarizing to a certain extent. But I want to talk about the article because what the article shows is he wants to bring a resolution. The first resolution he wants to deal with is the Middle East. So we'll start there, David. Regarding the Middle East, his plan is to sit down with Israel, to sit down with the PA, or after the last,
Whoever's in charge.
after the last topic we discussed, we don't know who's going to be there, and discuss peace or stabilization, maybe the Abraham Accords. And that has gotten a lot of people concerned, but other people excited because they said we may have some peace. The other one is NATO, sitting with NATO, which you mentioned earlier. NATO seems to be not wanting peace. Mark Rutte says we got to have a wartime mindset in order to have peace, which is an old Orwellian idea, thinking that you need to have war to have peace. War equals peace, which is, if you read 1984, you know what I'm talking about. And so let's start there. Let's start with Israel first. Is Trump willing to make this happen, this stabilization and some kind of peace agreement?
Well, as I've listened to Trump, he's always wanted peace. I remember some of the things he said back in the 80s and everything. He was political even back then. He was against some of the things that Reagan did, but he is against the industrial military complex. And this is the problem. We have our mindset that this has taken over America, that we can keep doing wars and little wars and managing the wars and just keep them little. And then we can keep the money, the military power going, the arms and the military factories and the jobs all going, and that's a good thing. But it's not anymore. It's driving us into a debt. So I think if he got the chance, he would try to make a peace treaty with as many Muslim countries as he can and with Israel. I think Israel would be willing to enter into a peace treaty, more so knowing that that Trump has their back. You know, they could feel confident that they could make a peace treaty. But as we talked about with making a peace treaty with Islam, if they do make one, according to the Quran, they have to break it within 7 years. If it's a 10-year pact, they have to break it. So it will be a peace, maybe, but Israel will always Israel will do what they need to do, but Islam will go to war. That's what they will do.
That's what they will do. And even if they do agree in certain principles, right? They, it's their theology. I think it's takia. That basically you can lie to your opponent until you have enough strength to, then you can break it because you didn't really mean it. And
then sue for peace if you're losing quickly.
And then until you have the upper hand. And that seems to be the case for sure. Yeah. Now, I don't know I think it was remember last year in one of the episodes, we talked about that there was this plan, and which included the Abraham Accords, which was supposed to bring some economic relief, quite economic relief to the Middle East, including Gaza, including the PA, in which they would benefit from lots of tourism, lots of infrastructure that they wanted to build. If they were willing to make peace, there would be or stability in the area, they would benefit from it. And Trump was part of that, but obviously this is 2020, and the election.
Not much of Gaza left.
Yeah, and so back then there was this treaty, and there was this part of this agreement that if they were to go to the negotiation tables at the Abraham Accord, they would benefit tremendously from it. And so this plan is actually noted on Jared Kushner's list of things that they were wanting to do with the Abraham Accord, was to bring lots of money, infrastructure, technology to that area. But David, as you know, the Middle East mindset, especially with Islam, it's never about that. They're like the Amalekites in Scripture. They're just completely rampage and pillaging. Now, there are some, like the Saudis, who see the benefit of technology, money, infrastructure, and they build quite a number of things in Abu Dhabi, Saudi Arabia, United Arab Emirates. There's quite a bit of things there, but that is the exception in terms of, like, they're looked upon as weak within the Muslim world, don't they? They feel like they betrayed their own people by lining up with the West. And the Saudis are going, well, we just want the technology and want the money. I mean, they're as corrupt as you can you can shake a stick at, but it's the exception, isn't it? Not the rule within Islam.
Yeah, and I mean Dubai trades gold and everything, and but within all these countries that are building these wonderful cities and countries, they always have radical Muslims that are holding to their old ways and funding terrorist groups. The money does go
Yeah,
somewhere. And
yes, that's
so
right.
to keep those people, it's like the Saudi Arabia, they have the militant group, which are the clergy, and basically, in order to keep their heads on their shoulders, the royal people fund these other groups,
Yes,
making midrashas around the world. South Africa has a lot of this teaching groups and everything, spreading Islamic theology across Africa. So
very true.
that's going on.
Yeah,
So there's rich people within these countries that still have this ideology and quietly funding it, while on the other hand, using warfare and direct and by warfare, deception and warfare by lying and saying, "Oh, we're for peace,
yeah,
peace. Look
we're for
what we're
peace.
doing." But on the other hand, readying the world for war
Yeah,
and
they
the
do fund
spreading of it.
a lot of schools, a lot of madrasas are funded by the
Yeah,
Saudi Arabian government, and a lot of
that's right.
mosques and a lot of teaching. I'm going to go to Jay real quick. Jay, what about the other war, the Ukraine Russia? This Trump is willing to do it. Can he do it with NATO? Blaming Russia for just about everything, not forgetting that NATO is the one that encroached upon Russia by bringing all these other countries up to the border, including even threatening to have Ukraine as part of NATO, which was the final straw. You had Sweden, you had Finland that was going to be part of NATO. Turkey shut that down, but it's still part of their plan. NATO wants war, Trump wants peace. Can he bring that into that area so badly needed?
Well, I seem to recall during the first part of the Trump presidency that he was going around Europe and basically saying, unless you pay your fair share into NATO, the United States is going to no longer give the full amount of money that we give. I think if Trump were to threaten these things again, I think NATO might heal like the good little dog that it is.
Yeah.
Mm. No, I think you're 100% right. I think there may be something coming down that NATO has to agree with Trump, but is it a little too late, Jay? Too little, too late, perhaps. I mean, it's been almost a million men that have died between Ukraine and Russia. Devastated cities, infrastructure is almost gone. Russia's lots of people, which is a terrible thing. It's always the people that suffer, not these horrible leaders. But perhaps you can salvage something, or is it too little, too late?
I think the negotiations need to begin with regime change in Ukraine.
Yeah.
Zelensky must go.
Yeah.
We cannot, in good faith, have someone like Zelensky in power in Ukraine. And Ukraine, unfortunately, needs to have its borders redrawn. It's really that simple. They can no longer have the territory that they've had
Mm.
because it's been used as a weapon against Russia, in my opinion.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think it's we're heading toward interesting times. Whether there's peace is gonna come or not, it's we're gonna see that. We're gonna have to take the time and see that happen. But it is as you say, Jay. I agree with you. I think there's something that could be done, but you have to have a change. You can no longer fund this type of corruption within Ukraine in order for the people to have peace. And the interesting thing is that there are some obviously who see Zelensky for who he is. There's some who they think he's the greatest guy, and
I have a very simple solution to that.
Yeah.
Forensic accounting of every single dollar that the United States and its allies put into Ukraine. Then
Oh,
let's truly determine if he's a good guy or a bad guy.
yeah,
Are you
yeah.
talking about his 15 houses and $1 million cars he owns?
I'm saying forensic accounting for every single
Everybody. Yeah,
dime.
well, we can't even get our Pentagon to find $800 billion they've lost.
Yeah. No,
It's
absolutely.
gone. It's the whole thing's corrupt. They were doing it before the war. They were money laundering, number one in the world, money laundering, number one in the world for sex trade and exploitation of women, criminal, mafia. You name it, they were number one in it. They were very proud of that. But
Well,
I think there were good people there, but the corruption was just unbelievable.
in the case of bank accounts, correct me if I'm wrong, but the government already seizes bank accounts of people they don't like. Are you saying we can't seize bank accounts from international people that we have determined are criminals?
Well, they would have to want to really do that, you know.
Oh, I see. They'd have to really want to do that.
And it depends on which politicians on the other side got money.
Got it.
Because you don't want to follow the money too far, just far enough to get it back, some of it back.
I was going to show you this because I was reminded of this handshake. So this is Macron and Trump at when they met before they went to Notre Dame, and this is the handshake that everybody's talking about.
It froze. I can't see it.
Oh, you can't see it? Oh, and this is Zoom for you right there. Let me see if I can put it right there.
It's an over the top.
There it is, right there.
Down and say, I'm the top guy. And you get it down like
there it
that.
is, right there.
And then you force it down at the end before releasing.
And you got these memes of like Macron's hand is completely crushed and he's just, crying about it. And this is a meme, of course, but it just shows even in the mannerism, right? Even in the mannerism, Trump's a guy that's going to go in there and say, look, we're going to have peace. We're going to have peace. And he did the same thing when he was first president. He would go in there and just kind of like clear the room. I'm here. In terms of negotiations, I mean, he's writing a book about it. David, I'll go back to you. Even across the aisle to Xi, the CCP dictator, he wants him to come to the inauguration, albeit it was rejected, but, pretty unprecedented, isn't it? He's reaching across the aisle to a man who's formidable against him, completely against him.
But, they had agreements which have not been much talked about, that during Trump's time, the fentanyl was cut off. He had an agreement, and they privately did it, and they worked on the Trump wants them to prosper. He wants us to prosper. He wants other nations to prosper. He's a builder. Look, I want to build. He told the guy in North Korea, hey, man, you got some great beaches there. Let's build some resorts, That's I know it's kind of strange to think this way. But he just wants people overall to be prosperous, to have a good life and to have peace. And he sees democracy and capitalism as a way of doing it. But, Islam doesn't think that way. Communism doesn't think that way. But he knows that if you have a good military, with most people, you can peace through strength is what he believes in.
I wanted to ask you the internal things here, David, because one of the things that Trump has always been talking about is how the FBI has been basically weaponized against the people, weaponized against him. Christopher Wray, which he appointed, turned against him and, searched his home, Mar-a-Lago. They went after him. They went after his home. They went after him personally. He
with kill order.
Yeah, with the kill order. Yeah, he just resigned on Wednesday, and they asked him about it, and he says, well, you know what? We're going to bring another guy in. Now, the FBI has been weaponized against the people, and one of the things the FBI is working with the banks and this is something that's called the Bank Secrecy Act that you wanted to talk about. Let's talk about that for a moment. Institutions voluntarily giving information over to the FBI and the government regarding banking, information about banks. They debanked Trump, his son as well, Barron. And so let's talk about that for a moment, because this is huge part of the FBI director has just resigned. We're going to bring another guy in, which I'll talk about in a moment. But the Bank Secrecy Act is something I think we need to be aware of and concerned.
Yeah, it's very concerning. Look, we saw the first note of this up in the trucker strike up in Canada. The government passed an emergency act and then froze the bank accounts of the truckers. These guys had no money. They had to go home. They had to beg, borrow, steal money for gas, diesel to get them home. And some of those guys have still not gotten their money back. like you said, Trump was debanked. There's been threats like even PayPal. If you don't kowtow to their regulations and their things on wokeism, stuff like this, that they would deplatform you. And so there's no and so this is very dangerous for Americans. Now remember, our speaker passed the Secrecy Act, but he exempted Congress and the senators from being spied on. But it's okay for us to be spied on. And so the government took great advantage to this. What they did is they had the ability to gather information via AI. So they made the AI search things like Trump, Bible, etc. And they would send notes with people's names, lists with people names. We find these people to be suspicious. Can you give us some information about them? And so Bank America was very glad to send your purchase records over, what you're buying. Oh, look at this guy. He bought a gun and a Bible. Uh-oh, he's a dangerous terrorist, suspected, and so that was a violation of it's a warrantless search, so it violates the Fourth Amendment. And the banks gladly did it. And so they're able to also, like I said, debank you. Just all of a sudden, you're not the right type of person, you're debanked. We've seen some of this where people have thousands and hundreds of thousands of dollars just frozen in an account. And they tell you can't even walk into that bank anymore. You can't talk to anybody. You have to write them and get your money back. So, and they make it very hard. So this is certainly an incredible way to have a heavy hand on the American public. And I would encourage everyone to look up this act. Martin Armstrong wrote an article on this, Armstrong Economics. You can look him up, get his article, I forwarded it to Marsha Blackburn, my senator, also Kash Patel, also to Mr. Trump. So send it to your congressmen, send it to your senators, and say, hey, this has to stop. This part is, you can't, get the bad guys, leave us in peace. And hopefully Mr. Trump, and his son who experienced this, hopefully he'll help reverse it. But this, of course, would have to go into the Secrecy Act and everything like that, and it'll have to be amended. And as Americans, we don't want our government spying on us. So we did get censorship also with the FBI using Twitter and all this. So that's been reversed. But once they've started doing it, it's hard to undo it. And they should, X is pretty good at getting information to our politicians. In fact, the Republicans felt they were being bullied concerning their choice for the Senate Majority Leader. So
Good.
They know it's out there. And all of a sudden you're seeing politicians kind of liking people they were going to vote against for confirmation. But all of a sudden they're going to be primaried. So that kind of changes their vote.
Yeah, and this is the Foreign Intelligence Surveillance Act is the one David was talking about. That Mike Johnson was the deciding vote. He put that hand on that scale, put the thumb on that scale, David. And it's Section 702, basically reauthorizing it. Basically, no need for a warrant in order to search your websites, in order to search your computer, in order to search your phone, in order to search even your modem and your IP address and stuff like that, which is related to what Dave is talking about, the Bank Secrecy Act. Jay, David brought the Kash Patel, the new guy that Trump said he would be the new FBI director, has to be confirmed. Would he be able to do anything about this? The things that still need to happen, including the largest sex trafficking operation in the world. It's he says the FBI knows it, the Diddy list, the FISA order, the laptop from hell. He's an interesting guy. Some Christians hate him because they think he's too new agey and stuff like that. But do you think he is going to do what he's been saying? He's been very vocal. He was part of the last administration with Trump. So your thoughts?
We need to watch and see. Obviously, we need to see what kind of progress he can make. Personally, the Epstein list and the Diddy list, I got a feeling that by the time Trump comes into office, those documents, those files, they'll be on some kind of hard drive that has been acid washed and taken a hammer to. I mean, that's unfortunately the case with the government. Whatever secrets are there that they have information on, by the time this new administration comes to the scene, it's gonna be gone, and they're gonna say, "Well, we don't know who lost it."
Yeah. Well, Diddy's his list was copied by multiple people, including 50 Cent. Apparently, there's a lot of good information out there. So his may be a little bit different. And also, Jay-Z is now in trouble. And there's lawsuits everywhere, civil suits and everything, people being raped and sodomized and everything else. So hopefully that will come out.
Let's see what Cash does, right? If he doesn't,
Yeah.
But Jay, look at this. Forget the list. Give us the names, right? Forget the list. Give us the names. And I applaud maybe Marshall Blackburn on this. He says, forget the list. Just release the names. Dick Durbin comes in. He says, nah, we're not going to do that. And again,
who is he?
They hate Congress. That's what they hate. Since we have the majority, they are absolutely, Senate and Congress have the majority. The Republicans sit back and say, well, we can't release it because they say no. They can't release it. Said no.
Yeah, that tells you that they're all on the list.
Exactly.
They've got their own list. You know that in Congress? They have their own list where they spend $19 million of American taxpayer money to cover up their own sex scandals.
And I believe this live stream is going to go down any minute now. Go ahead, Jay. Go ahead. So if we go down, you know why.
Yeah. We can talk about, we're talking about high profile stuff and we're talking about Epstein and we're talking about pre-Diddy, but understand that there's a much more sinister part of sex trafficking, which is happening basically with NGOs and NGOs that are supposedly nominally supposed to be Christian brothers, whether we're talking about Catholic charities, children's charities, all of these NGOs that are aiding in the immigration, aiding in finding and placing people. There's a lot of reporting out there that a lot of child trafficking, a lot of women's trafficking is going on under the auspices of these NGOs, which, by the way, are making not millions, but billions of dollars.
Billions with the B.
$300 billion estimate has been garnered by the cartels. $300 billion. Forget drugs. I mean, kids. 500,000 kids are possibly missing. Mr. Horman says, where are they? They have the names of supposedly their sponsors and supposedly, their relatives and things like this, but these kids were abused coming across, things like this. So let's hope Mr. Horman could start not only getting rid of the criminals, but finding some of these kids.
Exactly.
And exposing who is doing the trafficking and even expose the higher ups and the NGOs.
I wanted to finalize our episode real quick, talking about something related to theology that was an interesting article that was found this today. And it was written today. Thanks, Amber, for pointing it out. And it has to do with Trump's election bringing peace. It was written by Mark Hitchcock, which is a well-known teacher, author. I believe he's a lawyer as well, theologian, and respected. I think even Moriel, we some good things about him. David, you met him before, and he writes this article. It's called "Trump's Election Bring Peace Back to the Table." It's the stage being set for the ultimate man with a plan. And what the article basically describes is, look at Trump. he comes in, and right away everybody wants to make peace. So we had the whole section on that right now. In Zelensky to Russia to Hezbollah, they all want to make peace. Even NATO, which they don't typically like to make peace, so they're willing to talk about it. But the first point he addresses is the fact that people think Trump is the Antichrist. Now, I want to stop right there, David, and ask you a question, because this is something that Christians get involved in, all kinds of conspiracies from King Charles to what is the guy's name that you mentioned earlier? Nixon's advisor,
Kissinger,
Kissinger, Gorbachev, Reagan, you name it. They, we have the tendency to name everybody, and what we do forget is that the Bible speaks about many antichrists, but they want to make them the Antichrist. There was even a teacher years ago that they said Erdogan was the Antichrist, and so all these things came about. Macron is the Antichrist. All these things, right? We ultimately don't know. But one of the things people say is for sure. They say, and a lot of Christians believe this: Trump is the Antichrist, and he doesn't address the issue necessarily right away. He's not talking about that Trump is the Antichrist. He just says Trump looks like an Antichrist that makes peace. He makes peace. He flatters people, and he's trying to bring the Abraham Accords and all that stuff. So, in that regard, I think Trump does have similarities to that. David, what do you think? I mean, when Christians say Trump's the Antichrist, look at what he's doing. I think Jacob did a video on that recently.
Yeah, he did on RTN.
Yeah, I think it's on Moriel TV already, isn't it, Jay?
Moriel TV.
Yes, it
is. Easy to get to.
He's on there. So, what do you think about that? That when Christians make this accusation that's it, he's the Antichrist.
Well, one of the qualities or characteristics of the Antichrist is that he's going to war on God's people. And Trump is very pro-Christian and very pro-Israel. So that kind of disqualifies him. And also another characteristic is he has no regards for women. So Trump's had a few women in his life, so kind of likes them. So he's, so there's many things. And if you go to that thing, teaching, Jacob goes over a whole bunch of them. So you can see his characteristics and how Trump can't be the Antichrist. But I've always seen Trump lately as a Darius that is helping to accomplish things that actually are bringing Jews back to Israel.
Yeah, it's interesting, isn't it? So now, to Hitchcock's credit, he says, let me be clear, I'm not saying the president-elect is the Antichrist. He says, in fact, he doesn't think he's at all the Antichrist.
Right, that's true. He doesn't.
Yeah, and I give him credit for that. Now, here's one of his reasonings, and I want to bring this up to you and Jay. His reasoning is, the reason he's not the Antichrist is because the church hasn't been raptured. That's basically the restrainer hasn't been taken out of the way, he says, which occurs with the rapture of the church before the Antichrist can be revealed. 2 Thessalonians 2:7. For that reason, I often said, if you figured out who the Antichrist is, I have bad news for you. You've been left behind. So the first the first reasoning for Trump not being the Antichrist is because the restrainer still restraining, and therefore the church has not been raptured. Bottom line is, he's not the Antichrist because we're still here, and that's his first point. David, tackle that one. We'll go to Jim after that.
All right. It says in Scripture, let him who has wisdom count the number of the beast. All right, wisdom is given to God's people. And in Proverbs 8, wisdom is personified in the character of Jesus. And so if we're left behind because of the raptures, then who has this wisdom that are left behind? I don't think that's his look. I disagree with him. Look, Mark's a good guy. He hadn't bought into the apostasy as a rapture thing. So he's a good man. He defeated Hank Hanegraaff in a debate, ended his career, he said. Well, Hank said, but and there's other things that go on that point towards the first 3.5 years before the midpoint that deal with Christians receiving persecution. receiving that, having apostasy and having deception. So those are pointed at Christians, not at the world. And that occurs in the first 3.5 years. And it'll be a time like the world has never seen before. It's a time of purification for those that are in the church. They're going to be getting closer and closer to the Lord. So, and many could become martyrs, things like this. So I think he's wrong on that because of the timing of his rapture. But like I think many people who have a different view than a pre-trib view, we hope they're right, but we don't think they are.
Go ahead, Jay.
Good way of putting it. Good way of putting it. I'm just gonna, someone in the comments said something very, very
good.
Interesting. These Christians don't know their Bibles, and these guessing games may be quite damaging and discrediting to the gospel and biblical truth. I 100% agree with that statement.
Yes.
Very well said.
That's why I would say, unless you see someone, as Second Thessalonians says, he will oppose and will exalt himself over everything that is called God or is worshipped, so that he sets himself up in God's temple, proclaiming himself to be God. That is the litmus test we as Christians have. He sets himself above everything and exalts himself over everything and makes people worship him. That is the litmus test. And by the way, we're going to see some of that.
Yeah, I think when he mentioned 2 Thessalonians 2:7, which talks about the restrainer, obviously this is an article. I don't think it was some kind of theological paper on it, so he doesn't address all the things that could have been said. But he doesn't address the other, just earlier where it talks about the events that will take place before the rapture. Obviously, he doesn't believe the apostasy is the rapture, which I give him a lot of credit for that. Which seems to be a lot of pre-tribulationists are getting into that, unfortunately. But that's one of the reasons he says, which it's dealing tied up with the restrainer and how we must still not, he might not be the guy, because if we're looking for him, then if we find out who he is, then we're basically left behind, is what he's saying. Which goes back to what a lot of theologians have said in the past, and teachers have said in the past about, if you're not a pre-tribulationist, then you're looking for the Antichrist. You're not looking for Jesus Christ. And it's an appeal to emotion, because who wouldn't want to be looking for Jesus Christ? The Bible tells us to be looking for the coming of Jesus Christ. However, my thing would say is, I think that is a misnomer, because you're trying to make the point that we're fascinated with the Antichrist and that's all we want and that's all we care about. What I would say is, like, no, this is what the scripture says as a sign that we need to look for before the Lord comes. So we're looking for Christ, we're looking for his coming, but he gave us these signposts, these markers along the way. And one of them is clear in 2 Thessalonians 2, that it would be an apostasy that would come first, and then a sin is revealed. I think it's pretty straightforward in an epistle, where you don't have to really make a lot, the interpretation is pretty straightforward. But the article it's the idea, it's well written. I'm not denying the article is well written, but the man with the plan, it says we need to look forward to the coming of the Lord, because there will be this man with the plan. And David, I'll go back to you. Although we don't agree with Mark on this, and you met him, and he's a good guy, and all that you've said, and I agree. But in so many ways, is he setting up this false, again, a false idea that, hey, we don't need to be concerned about anything, because the coming peace is coming, with Jesus is going to be here. We need to look forward to his coming. And it sort of leaves us with this, and I got to say, leaves us, with an encouragement to say, look forward to the coming of Jesus. But he makes no mention of what is going to lead up to the coming of Jesus. Your thoughts on that?
Well, like I said, I do respect him. He's an earned doctorate, unlike others in the pre-trib camp, that some don't have their doctrine. Some are in the pre-trib camp are actually annihilationist, things like this. But they're let in because of their pre-trib stand. So for him, I think and with all pre-tribbles, I think they're giving people what they want. They're looking for a way out to go past go to get their $200 reward and not have to go through any hardships. It's the same type of philosophy that you're going to get out of here and everything's going to be good. But we're even hearing pre-tribbers saying, "Well, I thought we were supposed to be gone by now." And these are not just small pre-tribbers. And I mean, okay, J.D. Farag has got it wrong 5 or 6 times, but there's other people that are saying, that these things that they need to be out of here. But why did God tell us, let him who has wisdom count the number of the beast, and then give all sorts of information like in Daniel 7, Daniel 8, Daniel 9, Daniel 11 about the characteristics of the man? I think there's like 75 or 80 different characteristics.
Oh yeah.
That's we don't need that information. We're not going to be here, and the world won't care because they won't repent after the rapture. It says it won't. So why is the information in there? You know what I mean? Its information is in there for God's people. But also this information is good for understanding, as John said, the minty Antichrist. They have these characteristics. These that have come, the Hitlers, the Napoleons, they all had some form of these things, and it helps us identify people that are evil and try to suppress people. But there's such good things. Again, it says in Daniel 8, I think he'll be successful at everything. Well, Donald Trump's bankrupted a couple times, so I guess he's out. That would just be easy enough. But I would tell people, learn the characteristics of Antichrist so that you can be wise. You can have God's wisdom because he gives us his wisdom through his word. And the information is in there for us. And we are living at a time that's getting close to his coming. And we all three of us, we want to see him here. Yeah, we would love to not have to go through what's going to happen. But if God has chosen you and us to go through this time, it's a very special time. And if you have a strong witness, and you will have this time to witness to others that are falling or stumbling and help them back up, God has put you here. He's put you here for this time. And so count yourself blessed that you will be able to suffer in the fellowship of his suffering, as Paul talks about in Philippians.
Amen. Thanks, David.
I just wanted to add something.
Final thoughts. Absolutely.
I just wanted to add something to what David said. I'll save everyone a lot of time. If you watch J.D. Farag, he most likely will be talking about Isaiah 17 this week. So, don't waste your time. That's going to be his topic.
Very good.
We gave it to you first.
Yeah, there you go. Saved you some time. No, absolutely. Thank you, David. Thank you, Jay, for that. And if people want to read the article, I have no problem with it. I mean, people want to really read it and understand where we're coming from at all. Please just go read it, and maybe we'll post it on the comment section there so people can go read it, because I think it's worth reading for the effect of the fact that this is how people are thinking, that there is a growing contention of people saying this is the Antichrist. Trump, look at all the peace deals and stuff like that, and other people are saying no, it can't be. We're still here. And I think what the balance of Scripture is the fact that these things are setting up the stage. I believe the geography of the Middle East is changing. These agreements are setting up the stage to what we will see. And I want to make that clear. What we will see, and Thessalonians is very clear, and apostasy comes first, and the man of sin is going to be revealed. Not that we are looking for the Antichrist, as it were, some kind of hope. Yeah, our hope is always Christ Jesus in his coming. But the reality is there is a birth pang before the baby. And that is what we are told. We are instructed by the teaching of our Lord, by the very words of Jesus, to look out for these things when you see the abomination of desolation taking place, when you see these things happening, the things that he spoke about. So we have direct instruction from Jesus as to what to look for, what to find, what to understand, the wisdom that we need. And so why would we throw that away for a theology that basically says, no, none of that needs to happen. You just need to look for the blessed hope. Well, Jesus says, yes, you do look for the blessed hope, but I'm telling you what the signposts are going to be prior to the blessed hope. So we do believe it's Antichrist before Christ. Others don't believe that. We can discuss that. We could disagree as believers and look at Scripture and look at the direct teaching of Jesus. And I think that's a good way of coming to a conclusion. What does the Scripture say? Because what I don't want to do is, I can point to different books that point to, maybe agree with me, maybe disagree with me. But what ultimately we have to come down to is, what does the Scripture say? And how do we approach Scripture and all that? So anyway, we have questions.
Can I add one quick thing?
You can add. Yes.
Okay. I believe Dr. Hitchcock knows Jesus Christ and him crucified. And I do believe that's the qualifications for being able to get through the time of tribulation. And for qualifications, I don't ever divide over people that have a pre-trib. But what I do say is, look, you better be ready to live through tough times, because tough times are calling. And you better know Jesus Christ and him crucified, because that will make sure that you're ready for if Dr. Hitchcock is right or whether we're right. Know him. Know him in the fellowship of his suffering.
Yeah, get to know Christ and get to know the teachings of Christ.
That's right.
I do have to say that, and I agree with David, I do have to say the fact that so many people just abandon the teaching of Jesus because they say, well, I'm too confused. People have different opinions. And I said, yeah, I understand. Eschatology is one of those areas where the devil has really come in and really muddled the waters. And I've said this in different conferences, is that, that one area that is really under attack in terms of confusion and how the enemy wants to confuse people is the area of eschatology. Most false teachings is coming into the church through that area, through that theology and eschatology. So we have to be aware, and we have to know that you have to know the gospel, and you have to know what the Bible teaches about the return of Jesus. And I think if you put it in those terms, people are willing to look at it more, because then it becomes divisive. Like you talk about, David, it becomes this and that and the other. So you have to know Christ first. That's the first and foremost important thing. It doesn't matter if you get the rest of it completely right. But if you do know Christ, you have a command of the Lord to be aware and be alert of these things. So we're going to go to backstage, and we'll see you guys in a few minutes. We won't be on YouTube. We won't be on Facebook, but we'll be on the other platforms. You want to ask questions to David, it will be on Rumble. So we'll see
Jay and Marco, if needed.
In a couple of and I get to ask the questions. So that's the beauty of that. No, I'm kidding aside. But yeah, we'll help along the way. God bless you guys. We'll see you in a couple of minutes.
Hello, and thank you for watching Moriel TV. There are so many things that are happening at Moriel Ministries worldwide, from the Philippines to Japan to India to Africa and back to Europe and the United States. So many of our brothers and sisters are spreading the good news of Jesus Christ to this lost world. We are so thankful for your prayers. God has been faithful and has blessed us in so many ways. If you'd like to partner with our efforts abroad and at home, please take a moment to click the link in the description and help us as the Lord leads you. Thank you very much, and God bless.